Valentine's Day, a time for love, laughter, and haunting secrets? Beneath the romantic glow of crimson roses lies a chilling darkness. These are the tales of passion turned perilous, love twisted into terror, and the horrifying truth of what really happened in Fairhaven's cursed mansion. Are you brave enough to uncover the sinister side of love? Story number 1. The Crimson Roses. Valentine's Day had always been a big deal in the quiet town of Fairhaven. Every February, the streets were decorated with crimson ribbons and heart-shaped lanterns that swayed gently in the winter breeze. But beneath the cheerful facade, one haunting tale from decades ago cast a shadow over the celebrations. A tale the older residents whispered about but never fully explained. This is that story. In 1985, a young florist named Lily Hart owned a small shop called Blooming Love on the town's main street. Lily was a hopeless romantic, known for her warm smile and her knack for creating the most stunning bouquets. Every Valentine's Day, her shop buzzed with activity, and her signature arrangement, a dozen crimson roses wrapped in satin ribbon, was the most sought-after gift in Fairhaven. That year, amidst the rush of deliveries and last-minute orders, Lily received an unusual request. An elegant man in his mid-30s walked into her shop just before closing time. He wore a long black coat, his face pale and drawn as if he hadn't slept in days. He introduced himself as Mr. Adrian Cross and placed an order for an arrangement unlike anything Lily had created before. 13 crimson roses, one more than a traditional dozen, and a single white rose placed precisely at the center. "It must arrive at my fiancé's home at midnight," he said in a voice that was both commanding and eerily calm. Lily hesitated, explaining that her deliveries usually ended by 9 p.m. But Mr. Cross's dark eyes bore into hers, leaving her no room for negotiation. He handed her a generous payment, far more than the arrangement was worth, and vanished into the cold night. At precisely 11:45 p.m., Lily loaded the bouquet into her delivery van and set off to the address Mr. Cross had provided. It was a dilapidated mansion on the outskirts of town, its windows dark and its grounds overgrown with weeds. The place had a reputation for being cursed, abandoned after a tragic fire decades ago. But Lily, determined to fulfill her promise, ignored the growing unease in her chest. The front gate creaked open with an agonizing wail as she pushed it aside. The air was unnaturally still, and the faint scent of burnt wood lingered. Lily approached the mansion's grand door and knocked. To her surprise, it swung open on its own, revealing an opulent foyer bathed in moonlight streaming through a shattered skylight. There was no sign of life, only silence that pressed heavily against her ears. "Hello, Mr. Cross," Lily called, her voice trembling. She stepped inside, clutching the bouquet tightly. Her footsteps echoed as she made her way deeper into the mansion. Suddenly, the sound of faint laughter drifted down the grand staircase. It was soft, almost melodic, but tinged with an unsettling edge. Driven by equal parts curiosity and fear, Lily ascended the staircase, her heart pounding. At the top, she found a door slightly ajar, a faint golden light spilling out from within. She pushed it open to reveal a lavishly decorated room that seemed frozen in time. The walls were adorned with faded portraits, and the air was thick with the scent of roses. At the center of the room stood a table set for two, complete with candles, crystal glasses, and a plate of untouched food. But it was the figure seated at the table that made Lily's blood run cold. A woman in a tattered wedding gown sat motionless, her head bowed. Her long, dark hair obscured her face, and her hands rested delicately on the table. In front of her was a vase identical to the one Lily had brought, filled with 13 crimson roses and a single white rose in the center. Lily's breath caught as she stepped closer. "Ma'am? Are you okay?" she whispered. The woman's head snapped up, revealing hollow eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her lips parted in a smile that was both sorrowful and sinister. Before Lily could scream, the room was plunged into darkness. The candles flickered and extinguished, and a deafening crash echoed through the mansion. When the lights returned, the room was empty. The woman, the table, and the roses were gone. Trembling, Lily turned to flee, but as she reached the staircase, she saw him, Mr. Adrian Cross, standing at the bottom. His face was pale, his eyes filled with unspeakable anguish. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. Then, like a shadow dissolving at dawn, he vanished. Lily ran from the mansion, abandoning her van and sprinting back to town. The next morning, authorities found her curled up on the steps of her shop, clutching the bouquet. She never spoke of what happened that night, but she closed Blooming Love, for good and left Fairhaven shortly after. Over the years, locals claim to see faint lights flickering in the windows of the old mansion on Valentine's night. Some say they hear laughter, while others swear they've seen a woman in a wedding gown standing at the gate, holding 13 crimson roses and a single white one. But no one dares to deliver flowers to that house anymore. Story number 2. Shadows of the Past. Years after the unsettling events that drove Lily Hart away, the tale of the crimson roses became little more than a cautionary legend among the youth of Fairhaven. Yet, for one young woman, the story was more than a chilling bedtime tale. It was a mystery she was determined to unravel. Emma Sinclair, an aspiring journalist and a lifelong resident of Fairhaven, had grown up hearing whispers about the cursed mansion. Her grandmother had told her the story of Lily Hart on countless occasions, embellishing it with eerie details that sent shivers down her spine. Now in her 20s, Emma's curiosity had turned into an obsession. She was convinced there was more to the story than mere superstition, and she intended to find the truth. On Valentine's Day, Emma decided to visit the mansion. Armed with her camera, a flashlight, and a notebook, she ventured out under a pale moon. The town was quiet, the streets deserted as couples celebrated indoors. Emma's heart raced as she approached the gates of the mansion, now rusted and cloaked in ivy. She hesitated briefly before pushing them open, the same agonizing creak echoing into the night. The mansion loomed before her, its once grand facade now a crumbling shell. As she stepped inside, the air seemed to grow heavier, the scent of roses mingling with the faint odor of decay. Emma snapped a few photos of the foyer, her flashlight casting long, flickering shadows. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional groan of the old building settling. Ascending the staircase, Emma felt an inexplicable chill. Her grandmother's warnings echoed in her mind, but her determination pushed her forward. At the top, she found the same door Lily Hart had described. Slightly ajar, golden light spilling out. Swallowing her fear, Emma pushed it open. The room was as Lily had described, untouched by time. The table was set for two, the faint glow of candlelight illuminating the space. A vase of roses sat at the center, identical to the infamous bouquet. Emma's breath caught as she noticed a photograph resting against the vase. It was a faded image of a man and a woman, Mr. Adrian Cross and the woman in the wedding gown. Emma reached for the photo, but as her fingers brushed its surface, the candles flickered violently. The air grew icy, and a low whisper filled the room. "Leave," the voice was faint, barely more than a breath, but it sent a jolt of terror through Emma. She turned, her flashlight sweeping the room, but she was alone. Ignoring the warning, Emma took the photo and slipped it into her pocket. As she turned to leave, the door slammed shut. Panic surged as she pulled at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Shadows began to coalesce in the corners of the room, taking on vaguely human forms. One shadow stepped forward, its shape shifting into that of a woman in a tattered wedding gown. Her hollow eyes glowed faintly, locking onto Emma. "Why have you come?" the figure demanded, her voice echoing with sorrow and rage. Emma stammered, I just wanted to know the truth." The figure's expression softened for a moment before contorting with fury. "The truth is pain. The truth is loss. And now it is yours." Before Emma could react, the shadows surged toward her, enveloping her in darkness. A deafening roar filled her ears, and then, silence. When Emma awoke, she was lying on the steps of the mansion, clutching the photograph. The sun was rising, casting a pale light over the decaying structure. Her camera and flashlight were gone, but the memory of the night was burned into her mind. As she stumbled back to town, Emma realized the photo had changed. The image now showed only the woman in the wedding gown, standing alone in front of the mansion. And in her hand, she held a bouquet of 13 crimson roses and a single white one. Story number 3. The Final Valentine. Months after Emma's chilling encounter, Fairhaven buzzed with speculation about the photograph she recovered from the mansion. While some dismissed her story as a hoax, others believed it confirmed the mansion's sinister legacy. One man, however, saw it as an opportunity for redemption. Detective Mark Callahan had been a rookie cop in 1985 when Lily Hart's ordeal made headlines. Haunted by the unsolved mystery for decades, he had retired, but Emma's discovery reignited his desire to uncover the truth. Armed with Emma's photograph and old case files, Mark decided to return to the mansion one final time. It was Valentine's Day once again, and the moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the decaying mansion. Mark entered through the rusted gates, his flashlight illuminating the overgrown path. The air was colder than he remembered, as though the house itself resisted his presence. Inside, the foyer remained eerily unchanged, dust swirling in the beam of his flashlight. Mark's footsteps echoed as he ascended the staircase, each step a reminder of his unfinished business. When he reached the door at the top, he hesitated. The faint golden light seeping through the cracks seemed to beckon him. Pushing the door open, Mark stepped into the room. The table was there, set for two, with a bouquet of roses as its centerpiece. Beside it was a worn journal bound in leather. Mark picked it up, his hands trembling. Flipping through its pages, he realized it belonged to Adrian Cross. The entries detailed a love story that ended in heartbreak. Adrian had been engaged to a woman named Eleanor, but she had tragically perished in a fire at the mansion on Valentine's Day. The bouquet with 13 crimson roses and a single white one had been his last gift to her, symbolizing eternal love amidst grief. The fire consumed everything but the roses, which remained untouched, a detail that baffled investigators and fueled rumors of a curse. As Mark read, the room grew colder. A whispering wind circled him, carrying the faint scent of roses. The journal's final entry stopped him cold. "I promised Eleanor we'd be together forever. Even death won't keep me away. I will wait for her. Always." A sudden crash snapped Mark's attention. The shadows in the room began to writhe and twist, forming the familiar figure of a woman in a tattered wedding gown. Her hollow eyes fixed on him, glowing with an otherworldly light. "Why do you disturb us?" she demanded, her voice a blend of anguish and fury. "I'm here to end this," Mark said, holding up the journal. "Adrian never moved on, and neither did you. But this pain doesn't have to last." The woman's expression softened momentarily before flickering back to despair. "You cannot end what was meant to be eternal." Mark reached into his coat and pulled out a single white rose. "Love doesn't mean endless suffering. It's time to let go." The figure hesitated, her form flickering like a weak flame. Behind her, another shadow emerged. Adrian Cross. His face was a mask of regret as he extended his hand toward Eleanor. "I've waited for you," he said softly. The room filled with an otherworldly light as Eleanor turned toward Adrian. For the first time, her hollow eyes glistened with tears. She reached for his hand, and together, their forms began to fade. The bouquet on the table wilted, its petals scattering like ashes. When the light subsided, the room was empty, save for the journal and a single white rose lying on the table. The oppressive air lifted, replaced by a sense of quiet peace. Mark left the mansion as dawn broke, carrying the journal as a testament to the power of closure. The cursed mansion was never seen to glow again, and the whispers of laughter ceased. For the first time in decades, Valentine's Day in Fairhaven felt free of its haunting past. Valentine's Day, a time meant for love and joy, holds an eerie duality in the quiet town of Fairhaven.